My mom and dad loved to sing. They loved to sing together. They often would get up from the dinner table. Mom would sit down at the piano and start playing, and dad would add these marvelous melodies, and she would complement them with a dusky alto. They would sing for hours, old hymns, old standards. They were quite good and quite popular. They sang in church, they sang for weddings and funerals. One of their most often requested pieces was the old hymn, How Great Thou Art. O Lord my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the worlds thy hands have made. When the world got too much for me to bear, when pain and sorrow, confusion, when the bullies were too big and life seemed pointless, I would climb the mountain back of our house, and I would sit there for hours looking up and down the river valley in a world that stretched forth endlessly. And I found myself often breaking into that song, O Lord my God. When I think back, it was there in the midst of that creation that I first encountered the awesome power and creative genius of God. And I don't think that's an accident. I think at the very heart of God is God the Creator. And it is often there that we encounter him in ways that we fail to manage to encounter God in those places we think we should encounter God, like church. Sometimes God speaks to us most clearly in God's creation. And I think we know that intuitively. I mean, if you watch children as they first encounter the newness of their created world, a blade of grass, rain, snow, wind, a leaf, sunshine, they do so with such wonder and awe. And it sparks in them, I believe, a creativeness that we hear echoed in those opening verses of Genesis, where God announces the creation of humanity, male and female. He creates them in God's image. I think we wrestle with, is God male or female? I think what God is saying is that we are born to be co-creators in this world that God has made. That God's creation continues, not only outside of us, but through us. And again, I turn to the children. Watching my own children and now my grandchildren grow up, they seem to be born creators. You give them a pencil or a crayon, they draw, they color, they create worlds. They build incredible structures. They tell wonderful stories. They create dramas. They have imaginary friends. We are born to create. Far beyond that male and female act of procreation. We are creators. of new creations. And unfortunately, we manage to convince our children that that's frivolous. I remember loving art and music, but being told very clearly, you need to get a real job. You need to be productive. It took a long time to recognize the creative gifts that God has given to me, both in music and in art, in storytelling, and to share those. Because the world says, nah, that's not enough. The truth is, we're all born creators. We each have our own creative gifts that God has given us to share. It may be the gift of listening or speaking. It may be the gift of just sheer presence. I mean, how beautiful is a tree? And it just sits there. Sometimes that's the greatest creation we can be, is to be present for someone else in their times of need. We don't have to be wonderful artists or dramatists or dancers or singers to be creators. God has given us each gifts that we might share. I think part of the problem is that we think those gifts need to be productive. One of the ongoing fights I have with many of my artist friends is that my prices on my carvings are too low. I'm never going to make any money. Well, that's not why I carve. I carve for one reason and one reason only: to see the smile on the face of the person that sees that carving for the first time. I love to sit at Autumn Leaf in my booth and watch people walk by and just smile. I hope in some ways that it is because they stir the child inside of them. And oh, how that needs to be stirred these days. In a world of strife and violence and war, to stir a smile, a memory, to stir up that spirit of creation that dwells within us, that the world might smile a little more. So go create and let God work through you. Amen.